We're about 4 hours into the game. The last time the Phillies took the field against the New York Mets when Freddie Galvis was able to get to second base on a double in the 11th inning. Emmanuel Burris watches that ball went off the glove of Travis d'Arnaud, and Galvis was able to scamper over to third. So he was 90 feet away with an opportunity for the Phils to win the game, and Peter Borges hit it to a spot where David Wright said he had no chance to make the play. It scored Freddie Galvis. The Phils had taken the final game of the three-game series against the New York Mets. Then an off day, and now to Milwaukee for the start of a three-game series. Pete Maccannon's been doing a lot of talking about the offense, not only to us, but also individually with some players. The Phillies offense, the Brewers offense, both are trying to find something tonight in game one of this series. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McCarthy, along with Ben Davis. Now, we can talk all we want about the offense, which we will as the night moves on. But because both of these teams have struggled offensively, their bullpens have been pressured a lot because there's been a lot of tight games. Brewers' bullpen's been pretty good. The Phillies' bullpen last time out was outstanding, and that's why they were able to win that game.
I would say that outstanding, Tom, is a major understatement. These guys were awesome. They really kept them in the ball game. We know the Phillies haven't been scoring a lot of runs recently, but Neris comes in, Hinojosa comes in, Jamar Gomez comes in. Neris was filthy. 6 strikeouts in 2 innings. That splitter, I talked to him today about it. He said, yeah, sometimes it's that good, and it was that good. Hinojosa comes in, dominant with his fastball. Jamar Gomez, he's a strike thrower.
Well, and we talk about the Phillies bullpen, which the first series of the season against the Cincinnati Reds, they really struggled. In fact, that's part of the reason why the Phillies lost all 3 games. But since then, they've been stabilized. An ERA that's under 4. But if you look at the back-end guys, and Jamar Gomez is the closer, Hector Neris with that split who has a 0 earned run average. If you look at those guys in the back end, they really have done a nice job for the Phils, as we said, in stabilizing things moving forward. So tonight, the Phils and the Brewers will have Aaron Nola on the mound for the Phillies, try to get that earned run average down. He walked 3 in his last outing. He had no fastball, was relying just on his curve. And Zach Davies, who the Brewers got from the Baltimore Orioles, will be on the mound for Milwaukee. All right, so we talk about offense. Freddie Galvis has actually swung the bat well. Heavier bat has helped. We'll talk about Freddie and his offensive prowess when we return. Aaron Nola to your left, Zach Davies to your right. He's already ready to go and heading into the dugout to get his started tonight between the Phils and the Milwaukee Brewers. All right, so Phillies are hitting .214 as a team. If you look for a bright spot in the lineup, it's Odubel's walks, and it's probably what Freddie Galvis has been able to do, stretching his hitting streak now to 6 consecutive games.
He's looked good, and the bottom line is he's using the whole field. He's really starting to lay off some of those pitches in the dirt, which we've seen him do in recent years, especially when he gets 0-2-1-2. But he's starting to spray the ball. This off Jonathan Papelbon, the game winner last Sunday, and it's something that he needs to do. If he gets pull happy, then he starts to struggle. This is the ball to right field off Robles a couple nights ago, and really got things going for the Phillies. So this definitely is a positive sign for the Phillies.
Hey, you know, he also had a home run earlier in that game out to center field. Here's the 6-game hitting streak and the specifics that surrounded 8 hits and 25 at bats, 3 doubles in the home run to center field that we talked about. His on-base percentage is very good at .346. He's batting second tonight. You know, the Phillies are still looking for combinations around the lineup. Freddie Galvis is right now the least of the concerns for Pete Mackanin and the Phils fans. Sit back, get your feet up, and relax. The Phils and the Brewers are coming at you. Realized that we were ready to come back from break, and he said, I got to get out of the shot. Although it would have looked good if Semmy had stayed in it. Phillies are about ready to hit against the Milwaukee Brewers in game 1 of this 3-game series. Let's take a look at the Phils lineup. It's brought to you by Xfinity. The Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. Odubel Herrera leads it off at center field, and Freddie Galvis. Maikel Franco bats third, Ryan Howard fourth. Cameron Rupp is hitting 5th tonight. David Lowe gets another start because he's hitting the ball well. He'll bat 6th. The bottom third, Darren Rupp, Aaron Nola batting 8th, and Cesar Hernandez batting 9th. They will face right-hander Zach Davies, who is listed at 23. From a distance, he looks like he's 15 years old. Acquired last year by the Brewers from the Baltimore Orioles in the Gerardo Parra deal. And an ERA of 19.29. Ben started the year in the minor leagues, made 2 appearances, and then was called up to pitch for the Brewers.
Take a look at the scouting report. Really nothing overpowering. He's a 4-pitch pitcher, but he will get that pitch count up. That's one thing hopefully the Phillies offense can do, is to keep that pitch count up, get it in that bullpen.
29.6 pitches per inning.
I thought it was a misprint.
You have to think it's a misprint. All right, it's time now for our Nissan keys to the game.
Well, Ryan Braun and Luke Croy have been really the thorns in the Phillies' sides our last couple of years. So don't let the 3-4 hitters beat you, and rough them up.
I see.
It's a play on words there, Tom.
I see.
Hopefully Darren Ruff can get going here and provide a little bit more offense for this ball club.
That's the goal for Pete Mackanin, is to get Darren Ruff some ABs. Odubel Herrera will lead it off. Herrera hitting .255 with a home run and 6 RBIs. The first pitch of the night is whacked foul into the deck where we're sitting. And it's no balls and 1 strike. Odubel's on base percentage .424. He's walked 15 times, which is tops in the National League.
Seems like he's been more aggressive in the leadoff spot than he's been in the 2-hole.
And Pete talked about that today. He said he wants his guys to continue to be aggressive. But that is interesting because you would think it's totally the opposite for Odubel, is to be less aggressive as the leadoff hitter. He said there's not too much you could say bad about Odubel, but they do want him to get his average up. Swing and a miss. There's a lot of that going on the last few days. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
There's a difference between being aggressive and swinging at the pitcher's pitch. If you get a cookie that you like, go ahead and let it rip.
In the dirt, and it's 2-2. One thing Pete talked about earlier today, he said that watching the Mets play the last 3 games is that they really capitalized on the mistakes of the Phillies pitchers. He said we have to do that more often. As offensive players, we have to really capitalize on the mistakes of the pitcher. They throw a slider and hang it, you got to hit it. That one is poked out to left. Ryan Braun makes the catch. One away. Well, time to visit your local Cadillac dealer for attractive lease and finance offers with our Cadillac Home Run Replay.
It's a pitch out over the plate for Bartolo Colon. Really gets that ball up in the jet stream. The ball really does a nice job carrying on out to left center field. As your Cadillac Home Run Replay.
Freddie's hit 6 straight, as we mentioned. 9 for 34 in the homestand at 265. Takes high. 1 ball and no strikes. Third baseman Aaron Hill is in on the grass. And that pitch is out toward left center field. Braun started in. Now he circles back. His first couple of catches out in left field have not been smooth. I don't know if he was trying to show a little style or he just didn't see the ball that clearly.
That one in particular, he just overran. Ball coming back to his right and caught it on the opposite shoulder.
Well, 2 quick outs. So much for 29.6 pitches per inning for Zach Davies. Well, you figured that wasn't going to continue. And here's Maikel Franco, hitless in his last 8 at bats. And he takes outside. It's 1-0. He had 8 hits on the homestand. One of those hits was a home run. At the knees, according to Rob Drake, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike. His front foot, which he's been doing a lot of lately, not only with the breaking pitches like you just saw, but also he's been out on his front foot, weight forward early with the fastballs too. He broke his bat and he's got a base hit to left field.
Died a hero.
Died a hero. I mean, there are pieces everywhere on that broken bat. It's a 2-out single.
Another breaking ball down in the zone. It's amazing how you still finish through the baseball. Get a little bit more carry, was able to carry it over the shortstop.
Here's Howard hitting a .188 with 4 home runs. He has 12 home runs lifetime against the Milwaukee Brewers. Half of those home runs have come here at Miller Park. Overshift is on for Milwaukee with the second baseman in shallow right field, Scooter Gennett. The Lucky McDonald's Phillies home run jackpot contestant is Edgar Seeley of Levittown. Phillies hit a home run in today's ball game. Then Edgar will take home $100.
Good luck, Edgar.
That one's hit sharply through the shift and into right field, a base hit. Franco will hold up at second base. So Ryan Howard has a base hit. And back-to-back singles for the Phillies here in the top of the first.
Nice crisp single there by the big piece. Ball came off his bat very well.
It did, and you know, there's so often times where he'll pull the ball to the right side. It goes right to where Scooter Gennett is. This one seems to find that hole.
That hit to pretty much straight up second base where the second baseman normally would play. Phillies have a little 2-out lightning working here, Tom.
Well, let's hope it continues. Cameron Rupp is hitting 3 straight. He had 7 hits on the homestand. Ball in the dirt, and it's 1 ball and no strikes.
Just imperative that these hitters, Zach Davies really doesn't have anything to throw past you, so the hitters just have to trust themselves, let pitches get deep. If anything, if you get beat, you're still going to be able to barrel ball the opposite field.
Yeah, he's thrown two pitches in the dirt, and Lucroy has been able to block them. But you know, you talk about nothing can blow by you. He hasn't really located his breaking pitch consistently either.
So look for something up in the zone and whack it.
Up high, 2 balls and no strikes to Rupp. Hitters have always said that this is one of the best batter's eyes. This one in Arizona in baseball. I mean, you can see the baseball easily. That's pitcher's pitch right there. Looked like a changeup.
78 miles an hour.
Well, he is a 4-pitch pitcher. Fastball, as we talked about, probably sits high 80s, low 90s. There's a fastball for a strike. That one comes in at 88 miles an hour. And the count is run even, 2 balls and 2 strikes. That one's hit back toward the middle. Oh, diving stop. Scooter Gennett, the second baseman playing on that side of the diamond, is able to make the play and rob Cameron Rupp of a base hit. And the Phils are retired here in the first. No runs, 2 hits, and 2 men left. Team that he used to play for. Let's take a look at his lineup. It's brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. Leading it off in right field is Domingo Santana. Scooter Gennett bats second, plays second. Ryan Braun hits third. Jonathan Lucroy fourth. Chris Carter over from the Astros will play first base. He'll bat fifth. Aaron Hill sixth. And the bottom third of Flores, Davies, and Jonathan VR, former Phillies prospect. So the Brewers lineup is bookended with former Phillies prospects, and they will face Aaron Nola. Nola 0-2 with an ERA of 5.68. They've kind of fine-tuned a couple things this past week. Since his fastball wasn't great, as he said the last time, he's going to try to locate it a little bit better here tonight against the Brewers.
Aaron scouting report will sit right around 90 miles an hour. Change curve is his best out pitch with that breaking ball, averaging just over 14 pitches per inning, but a changeup is key to him. I know the Brewers have a lot of righties in their lineup, but he still needs to throw that changeup.
As we start the bottom of the first inning, Domingo Santana will lead it off. Santana hitting .259, a couple home runs, 8 RBIs. Brewers are ecstatic with the deal they made last year, sending Carlos Gomez to the Houston Astros, because they were able to get, among other players, Domingo Santana, who the Phillies originally sent to the Astros in the Hunter Pence trade. Pitch a little low, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike.
One of the larger leadoff men you'll find in the game, 6'5", 220.
He is a big kid. He is really filled out since playing with the Phillies. He was under 200 pounds when he was playing in the Phillies organization. Last played for the Phillies with the Lakewood Blue Claws.
Long follow through, got Cameron Rupp on the noggin.
Play off to the right, and it remains 1 ball and 2 strikes. Santana is now 23 years old. He played 38 games with the Brewers last season and hit .231, had 6 home runs. Played 14 games with the Astros. Overall had 8 homers in the big leagues. Takes a breaking ball, and it's 2-2. Another breaking pitch. Umpires for tonight's ball game: Rob Drake is behind the plate. Carlos Torres, one of the rookie umpires, at first. Jim Wolf is at second, and the crew chief is Sam Holbrook. He's around to third. Ball got into the stands in the second level in a heartbeat.
All the seats here really are right on top of the field,
yes,
which I love.
I think particularly the second level.
Yes.
When you talk about the first level, normally it is toward the field, but the second level just seems like it's right there, which is where we are sitting.
Yes.
Swing and a miss. He went with a high heater. And there's 1 out here in the bottom of the first inning. So first strikeout for Aaron Nola. Scooter Jeanette's coming up. Well, Murph, this is the beginning of a long trek of road games for the Phils.
Yes, as you are well aware, the Phillies are embarking on a very long road trip. It's the kind of road trip that when you wake up in the morning, you have to ask yourself, what city am I in? Well, it starts here, right here in Milwaukee. The next 16 of the next 19 games on the road. 3 against the Brewers and a day off in Washington, then 3 against the Nats. Then the team comes back home for 3 against the Indians, but immediately back out on the road for a 4-game series against the Cardinals. Then you've got Miami and Atlanta on the back end of them. So just 2-4 so far on the road are the Phils, but they're going to get a chance to test that road medal going forward. As I said, 16 of the next 19 on the road, guys.
Murph, Ben and I thought it would be kind of cool if you had started that report by saying, here we are in Washington, D.C.
Well, I'm not confused yet because we just got here. But, you know, talk to me when we're in Miami. I might have no idea where we are.
1 ball and 1 strike to Scooter Jeanette. 0 for 4 so far on this homestand, which included the games against the Twins. And he takes outside, 2 balls and 1 strike.
Scooter just had an excellent play on Cameron Rupp, ball up the middle. Would have definitely knocked in Mike Franco from second base.
Curveball sweeps inside, 3-1. Scooter Jeanette has done a better job walking this year. 9 walks so far this season. It's kind of along the same lines as Odubel Herrera, who walked 28 times last year, but has already reached the midway point of that total. Scooter Jeanette walked just 12 times last year, and he's now walked 10 times this season. I have to admit, that looked like a strike in the top of the first inning, but for some reason, Rob Drake, who is hearing it from Cameron Rupp right now. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, Jason Worth is homered. Jose Lobaton is 2 for 2 with 3 RBIs. Washington has jumped out to a 7-1 lead over Minnesota. And that game's in the bottom half of the 4th inning. Daniel Murphy, who is leading the league in hitting, also had an RBI in that game. Here's Ryan Braun. He's hit it 4 straight. The Phillies are catching him while he's hot, which is usually the case. Even if he's not hot to start the series against the Phils, well, he's hot by the time it's over with. Look at those career numbers against the Phillies. We always thought Todd Helton had great numbers against the Phillies. Braun's numbers, they may not be Todd Helton like, but they're getting close.
That's why it was one of my keys.
Which is why the walk doesn't help.
And I'm kind of baffled why he threw Scooter Gennett a 2-1 hook. Why throw him a breaking ball there? If Scooter Gennett goes up top and makes it 1-0, so be it. But you don't want to fall behind 3-1. Then he knows exactly what he's getting. You don't want to put anyone on base before Braun and Lucroy.
Yeah, because look what Braun's done the last dozen games against the Phillies. He and Lucroy both have done a lot of damage. Ground ball toward the hole. Galvis was shaded toward the middle for 2. Jeanette's on his way to third base. Ruff's throw to third is offline. And Jeanette capitalizing on Darren going after the ball somewhat conservatively. And he decided to try to test the arm. And he passed the test. First and third with 1 man down.
Very aggressive base running here. Good throw has him. But he doesn't stop, doesn't pause, doesn't hesitate whatsoever. Michael having to go up the line a little bit more towards second base to receive this throw. Probably a smart play by Michael. If he lets that ball go through, I believe Scooter's going to slide into that ball and kick it into foul territory.
Well, now Jonathan Lucroy will be the hitter with runners on first and third. Lucroy hitting .291. He's hitting 6 straight. He's hitting over .300 during that stretch. Fastball inside, 1-0. Ball at 1 strike. Hey, you think about that play by Scooter Gennett, you applaud it because he made it, but that is as gutsy a base running play in the first inning that you're going to see, because it's right in front of him. And I guess, like we said, what he saw was that Darren Ruff was deep and didn't charge after it with conviction.
I give him credit. Very aggressive, and it did work out.
Well, if you're Craig Counsell, I mean, he used to play that way.
Yes, he did.
He may not have been the most talented guy, but he played it. He played the game 100 miles an hour. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Lucroy. Phillies infielders set to turn 2. And Lucroy fouls it back to the screen. Brewers have gone through this rebuilding phase, much like the Phillies have. They've held on to Braun, partly because of his salary and his injury woes. And they've held on to Jonathan Lucroy, even though there were a lot of people that thought he would be traded at some point during the offseason, because he has a very good contract considering his numbers usually. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Breaking ball, waved at it, missed. Strikeout number 2 for Aaron Nola. There are 2 outs with runners on first and third.
That's a nice pitch here. Nice tight breaking ball. That had more of a downward tilt on it than the lateral move that sometimes he gets around it and it creates more of that lateral move. That had nice sharp downward breaking motion on it.
Well, that'll bring Chris Carter to the plate. Carter, .240 this year with 4 homers and 13 runs batted in. The last 3 years with the Astros, he's played 148, 145, and 129 games. I think a lot of people were surprised when he found his way to the National League. And didn't stay in the American League where he could DH. But he's been playing first base.
Another big old donkey.
He is a big dude. 6'4", listed 245. And he has an amazing amount of power. "29 years old. He's one of those guys that looks older than his age. Not a bad contract. 1 year, $2.5 million. Fastball on the inside corner. 1 ball, 1 strike. Line drive, base hit to right field, so Milwaukee will take a 1-0 lead. Braun stops at second base. An RBI single for Carter's 14th ribby of the year. And it's 1-0. Milwaukee's on top. Now that'll bring Aaron Hill to the plate.
Good hitting right there. Really a short, compact swing for a big guy who does strike out a ton. Well, actually ran back towards the inner part of the plate, and he stays inside and shoots a bullet to right.
With 2 on, Aaron Hill, the veteran, comes up, hitting 170 so far this year. Brewers picked up Aaron Hill from the Arizona Diamondbacks. They traded their shortstop Gene Segura to the Diamondbacks, and they picked up Aaron Hill and Chase Anderson, who will pitch tomorrow, and one other prospect. Fastball in there, and it's 1-1. Good pitch.
Throw it again here. That's a good one.
Would you throw it in the same spot, or
Yes.
would you roll it a little bit farther away?
Throw it in the same spot if you can, ideally.
He does, and it's pulled to third. Franco will just take it to the third base bag, and that'll do it for Milwaukee here in the first inning. But they do score a run on the RBI single by that guy, Chris Carter. Will head The Phillies will return home for 3 against the Indians on Sunday, May 1st. It's StubHub Mother's Appreciation Day. It's a 2:35 first pitch. Tickets can be purchased anytime by going to Phillies.com. The Phillies Infinity Scarf to all women 15 and older. David Lowe will lead it off. Phillies down 1-0 as we go to the top of the second. And Lowe fouls it off to the left and out of play. Pete Buchanan was asked today about his lineup. And for the first time since David Lowe came back up, he wasn't asked why David Lowe was in the starting lineup. I mean, the last couple of days, Pete has said, and believe me, we asked him all the time about the lineup. He said, listen, his swings have been very good since he came up. He said, I'm looking for offense. And he said, so I'm going to keep running him out there, at least for the time being, as he bloops that one toward left. That's going to drop for a base hit. And he will stay at first. So that's the Phil's 3rd hit.
It was a ting and beauty, Tom.
Well, as you know, you'll take any of them.
And he's another guy that's like Freddie's been lately, using the whole field. And that was not a pretty hit, but at least he didn't try and roll it over.
It's always good to start an inning with a base hit. And now you got Darren Ruff coming up, who is desperately in need of some at-bats. 1 for 11 on the homestand. Breaking ball outside, 1-0. You know what it's like, Ben, when you don't play for, let's say, 4 or 5 days, or you get an at-bat here or there. You can be the best hitter in the world, but sometimes you don't have the chance to get any timing down. It's not going to make you an effective pinch hitter.
No, it's not. And then you start to press. I have to. Worst thing you can ever do as a hitter is say, I have to. You start pressing, you start swinging at pitches you don't want to, and you start taking the ones you should swing at.
And Pete has even said, he said, listen, I need to do a better job of getting him in there, just so he gets some swings. 1 ball, no strikes to Darren Ruff. There goes Lowe. Pitches cracked foul toward the Phillies on deck circle. And David Lowe will head back to first. You start him again, or you wait a pitch?
Well, not sure if David Lowe has the green light, but if I feel like you can get a good jump, why not?
He doesn't go this time. Pitches outside. Tonight's game is also available in Spanish. Just use the SAP button on your television or change the language through the menu on your cable box.
See.
Lowe takes off, and the pitch is fouled again. Off to the right this time. See, that was, I think, one of the mistakes that Pete talked about, the hanger. And he said, when that happens, we got to be able to connect on it.
And that's the problem when you don't get a lot of at bats. You get that cookie, you get that hanger, and you're not able to really drive it. This ball needs to be killed. It's a hanging changeup right there. And Darren's been very good. At least he was very good in spring training, driving the ball to right field. But that's a pitch, you're right, that needs to be hit. But when you don't have those at bats under your belt, it's tough to get that timing down.
It's even 2 balls and 2 strikes. Breaking ball, swung on and missed, and that's the first strikeout for Davies that he's had this year in the big leagues. 1 away, and that'll bring Aaron Nola to the plate.
Breaking ball here, that's a good one. That was a very good breaking ball. A lot better than the ones he threw in that first inning when he was spiking pitches in the dirt.
Well, now you have the number 8 hitter, Aaron Nola. So this is where you run into a little bit of a problem with the pitcher batting 8th instead of 9th. But Pete is doing it tonight because the Phillies won the other day. But there's also another reason why he's doing it. As Nola squares, pitches outside, 1 ball, no strikes. I asked Pete today, I said, did you say anything to Peter Borges or to Cesar Hernandez about batting 9th? He said, no, I don't think I have to. He said, I think the fact that they're batting 9th is the only message I need to send. He said, I'm sending a message that, honestly, I think that pitchers are probably better hitters than you are.
Right.
He said, I hope they understand that. I don't think I have to say anything. Aaron jabs at it and bunts it foul, 1-1. Now, if you look at the numbers and just conceptually, they're not better hitters than Peter Borges or Cesar Hernandez, but I think what Pete was saying is that they need to be better than what they are so far if the Phillies are going to be better. Runner goes, pitches low. Lucroy's throw to second is in time. David Lowe is nailed trying to swipe second base. 2-6 on the putout. And now there's 2 outs.
I'm not sure if that's a missed sign. It looks like he does try and square around, but David Lowe must have been going on his own. Because now you got the pitcher up there with 2 outs. Ideally, you'd like to get that runner in scoring position. Even though there's 2 outs, you get a good chance of driving him in.
Yeah, I would have to think he was going on his own. Chopper right side. Scooter Gennett charges. Phillies are retired here in the 2nd inning. No runs, 1 hit, and nobody left. We'll head to the bottom of the 2nd. Aaron Nola will go back to work with his team trailing by 1.
Week starts at 6 Monday on the Comcast Network.
The Eagles will have the 2nd overall pick in this year's drafts. We go to the bottom of the 2nd, and the Brewers lead it 1-0. It'll be Ramon Flores, Zach Davies, and Jonathan Villar against Aaron Nola, who does have to adhere to the time limit because he was the base runner or the batter that finished up the inning. He's going to face 7, 8, 9. The Brewers also have the pitcher batting 8th. And Ben, last year that happened 10 times, and they were all Cubs games where the pitcher batted 8th for both teams. 10 times last year. And I think it's going to wind up happening even more as we move forward, particularly if the results And the results are, as we've told you in that series against the Reds, there's no numerical advantage to the pitcher batting 8th compared to the pitcher batting 9th. But as numbers continue to dictate success and failure in baseball, you're probably going to see it more often.
I have noticed a trend that more often than not, the pitcher is not leading off that inning. If it was reversed, Aaron Nola would be leading off next inning.
Right.
You know, so I think that has come into play a lot more than I thought it would have.
All right, so what you're saying is that then the number 9 hitter will act like another leadoff.
Correct. And this is really what Pete Mackanin planned, in the fact that now you're going to have Odubel Herrera hitting second, which is where he started the year.
Well, we go to the bottom of the second, and here is Ramon Flores. Flores split time last year between the Yankees and the Mariners. And then the Mariners traded him over here to the Brewers this past offseason. Hitting a .161, a .275 lifetime hitter in the minor leagues. And he takes on the outside corner. No balls and 2 strikes. In the dirt, and it's 1-2. Aaron Nola has already struck out 2 batters in this game. The Phillies as a team have struck out 166 batters on the season, which is tops in the National League. The Brewers, on the other hand, have 100 strikeouts this year for their staff. That is the bottom of the National League. One away as Flores is retired.
I love that pitch right there. It went at him with all fastballs. A fastball inside there. Gets it on the hands of Ramon Flores. Watch this. Hits the glove exactly where Cameron Rupp wanted it. It's a feeble ground ball to third base.
Well, here is Zach Davies. Davies takes on the outside corner, 0-1. Career numbers 1 for 14. He flinched a little bit at that breaking pitch. Three strikeouts for Aaron Nola as he picks up the second out here in the second inning. And 2 away for Jonathan VR. Saturday, May 14th, when the Phillies take on the Cincinnati Reds, it's Tampa respiratory night at Citizens Bank Park, and all fans coming to the ballpark will receive the free Phillies cap. It's all part of a weekend series against the Reds. Tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. VR takes a fastball outside, hitting .283. Acquired from the Astros for a pitcher by the name of Cy Sneed. And VR was with the Phils 2008, 9, and 10. Back-to-back breaking pitches. Swings as the third base umpire Sam Holbrook.
See, again, it's a 1-0 breaking ball to the 9-hitter hitting .240 with no homers and 1 RBI. It's not like he's not locating his fastball well.
There is that fastball.
I'm throwing a sinker down and away. Slap it to left for a single, so be it.
Outside, ball 4, second walk issued by Aaron Nola. I guess it's right. I mean, you kind of put yourself in a hole, even though he does have a good breaking pitch.
Then you have to throw so many more strikes to get back into the count.
Here is Domingo Santana. Starts him off with a breaking pitch, and it's 0-1. And a base hit to center field. VR is on his way to third. Odubel's throw cut off by Galvis, dropped, and Santana goes to second. And that puts runners on second and third with 2 men down. Well, Odubel is a very gifted outfielder. He's getting better with each passing year, but that throw's got to go to second base.
All day and all night. Obviously no chance to get VR at third base. Come up, just throw it, fire a strike into second base. You have first and third.
Now, if Freddie had fielded that ball cleanly and turned, they probably would have had Santiago.
Still would have been a tough
Santana, I
play.
should say. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think the safe play is just to get it to second. Now you have 2 in scoring position.
You throw it to second base, you take all the risk out of the play.
All right, so now they got to get Scooter Gennett.
Hopefully that dreaded 2-out walk won't come back to bite Aaron.
Scooter swings at the first pitch. A changeup from Aaron Nola. Hasn't thrown many of those tonight. And it's 0-1. Off the hands, out to shallow left. Going out is Galvis. He says he has it, and he makes the catch. And the side is retired. So the 2-out walk does not come back to haunt Aaron Nola. He leaves a couple of base runners, and we will leave for the third. Stump the Fans trivia question. Log on to Phillies.com. Go to the fans section for all the information. Please submit your answer on the subject line. All right, Ben, here's the question. What 2 Brewers tied for the team lead in hits last season? Answer will be revealed in just a little bit. You have to dig deep for your Brewers knowledge on that one.
I was going to say number 4 and number 19, but I think they're off the board.
Cesar Hernandez, who takes outside.
They definitely didn't play last season for the Brew Crew.
All right, let me just say, if they did play,
yes,
they probably would be the leaders in hits.
Okay.
Cesar takes a ball, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike. Cesar hitting .240. No homers and 1 run batted in. And a line drive base hit into center field. That's a good swing. 4th hit for the Phillies, and the 2nd time they've got their leadoff hitter aboard.
Watch your lips out there, Zach Davies. That's a quick swing, very handsy swing. Drove that ball back up the middle.
Now the Phillies have tried to run a couple times in the first 2 innings. I would think that they'll keep pressing the issue here. Got a good receiver behind the plate though in Lucroy. His mechanics are very good. He's got a strong arm. Lucroy's taking a peek over to the dugout. Craig Counsell is letting him know whether he wants to throw over or not. Look over toward the dugout. Is there ever a manager that let you control the running game?
No.
Would you have wanted to control the running game, or are you okay that that's taken off the catcher's table, catcher's plate?
I would have liked to. I felt I had a good grasp of the game. The only thing I would have been concerned about, and I didn't like them to begin with, were pitch outs. If I were to call a pitch out, if the game was on me and I call a pitch out, next I go in the dugout. What are you doing?
Did you not like the conception of a pitch out, or just the physical part of a pitch
I just
out?
knew the pitcher wasn't going to put it where I wanted.
Okay. I didn't know if it was something that you just couldn't pop out and get it, or you just weren't.
No. And then other times you'd have the pitcher step off and wave you out like, what's that sign? It's like, how many times do we have to go over this, fellas?
Runner goes, then stops. The pitch is a swing and a miss by Odubel. And it's 1 ball and 1 strike. Take a look. He did not come close to going up.
His hands went forward, but not the barrel of the bat.
Oh boy. There goes Cesar. Pitch is high. It's a good pitch to throw, and the second base is in time to get Hernandez, who's peeking over to the Phillies dugout. PHI saying, hold on 1 second. Cesar peeked, but he didn't really react to it. I think he got him on his leg as he was sliding past the glove.
Not a very good jump there by Cesar. I think he is out there.
He got him on the hip. Now, was his hand on the bag?
Yeah.
It looked like he's out. Yep. And the Phillies are not going to ask for a replay. So Lucroy has thrown out 2 runners trying to steal. And now time is called by Odubel. All right, well, I guess if you're a catcher, you're thinking, I'm controlling the running game. I can't imagine they're going to do it again. I've thrown out a fast runner and well, 2 fast runners, and David Lowe and Cesar Hernandez.
Like I said, that wasn't the best of jumps, but Lucroy, it's a very accurate arm, but he gets rid of it quickly.
Fly ball to shallow center field. Flores got a good jump on it, makes the catch, and 2 outs. Freddie Galvis is coming up with 2 away here in the top of the 3rd. couldn't tell if Ryan Howard was having a conversation with Odubel or Pete Buchanan was having a conversation with Odubel. I think he was definitely honked about the first strike that was called, the check swing. Outside 2-0 to Galvis. At the knees.
Cut it loose, Freddie. He just knew he was going to get this 3-1 count.
Good hitters count.
The 2-0 pitch was a good one to cut loose on.
Down the left field line, slicing toward the tarp and out of play. And now it's 3-2. Odubel is not pleased with his at bat. And not only his result, but I think he's not pleased with the fact he was put in a hole.
I would say he's disgruntled, to say the least.
Inside, ball 4. First walk issued by Davies. And here comes Maikel Franco. Well, the split, as we talk about with pitchers, the total number of pitches isn't bad, but 21 balls, 24 strikes. It hasn't hurt him yet.
He's approaching that pitches per inning number that we saw. This will be the 46th pitch. And he's averaging 26.9 going into today's ball game.
That one's whacked toward the left side. Scooter Gennett is up with it. He'll throw to first. 4-3 on the putout. And the side is retired. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left for the Phillies. We played 2.5. On to the bottom of the third. Aaron Nola goes back to work when we Phillies baseball is brought to you by McDonald's. Come into McDonald's for an Egg McMuffin and medium iced coffee for $3.49. By Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop ChooseNissan.com. And by Yellowwood brand pressure treated pine. If it doesn't have this yellow tag, you don't want it. Miller Park, where the windows and the roof are closed for baseball tonight. Might be open tomorrow.
They're closed.
Closed tomorrow?
No, right now.
I thought you had some inside information.
No. I know how you don't like it.
I'm okay with it today because it was 44 degrees outside at game time. By the way, you can see the green Comcast Sportsnet logo up top. Today is Earth Day. We're flashing a little green in honor of Earth Day. Did you plant a tree today, Ben?
Yes.
People in Milwaukee are very appreciative of that. Phillies spent part of their day at FDR Park cleaning the park up, getting ready for the RBI leagues. 1 strike to Ryan Braun. Sarge was over there yesterday. There were some kids from France that were over, learning the game of baseball, learning from the Sarge.
Oui.
One ball and 2 strikes. What if I had said kids from Germany? Would you have?
Duh.
You don't even know if that's
no,
right.
No, I don't.
Outside. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Ryan Braun's played over 1,230 games as a member of the Milwaukee Brewers. He has passed Jeff Jenkins for 6th all time on that list, even with all the injuries and his suspension. There's a topper over the mound. Tough play for Galvis. Charges, has it, fires in time, and 1 away. That ball was kind of snaking its way out toward the second base bag, and Freddie was able to finish on the right side of the diamond.
Once got over Nola's head, I said, oh boy. But Freddie comes up here. I thought there was a chance he may barehand it, but the transition from his glove to his throwing hand was outstanding. What made it great was he didn't flip it to his throwing hand. He went in and grabbed it. On infielders get caught, they'll flip it to that throwing hand and end up dropping the baseball.
Jonathan Lucroy struck out his first time up. Lucroy takes a fastball at the knees. It's no balls and 1 strike. Mentioned before that Lucroy has a very manageable contract. His contract is up at the end of this year, but there is an option for 2017. And think about the numbers he's put up during the course of his career. Last year at 264 with 7 homers and 43 RBIs. Somewhat of a down year. The previous year, 53 doubles.
Yeah.
So that was all part of a 5-year, $10 million contract that he signed back in 2012. High fly ball to right field. David Lowe backpedaling, and there are 2 outs. So if a team picks him up this season, which they could do, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do, he would make the end of his $4 million contract. And then next year would make $5.2 million. It's still, if you're looking for an everyday catcher, that is a very manageable salary for a guy that's put up the numbers he's put up.
I wouldn't say it's a steal, but it's as close to a steal as you can find.
No, because let's face it, the $5 million is nothing to sneeze about.
No.
But in this day and age, think about what Brian McCann makes. You know, some of the higher priced catchers. Swing and a miss by Carter, 0-2.
Especially with the, I'll be honest with you, the lack of catching talent I see out there. I think it's really a position that's gone downhill.
Since what, the 2010-11 season?
No, you look around the league, and I think it's just a position that I think they don't put as much stock in anymore.
Good curveball by Aaron Nola, picks up his 4th strikeout of the night, and the Brewers are set down in order. 1, 2, 3. We'll go to the 4th inning. The Phillies and the Brewers, and a good one so far. It's 1-0 Milwaukee. Ryan Howard will lead it off. fourth inning is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. Let's go Phillies. So the one run in the first inning for Milwaukee. That's it so far. We'll go to the top of the fourth. It'll be Ryan Howard, Cameron Rupp, and David Lowe for the Phillies. We've seen a sprinkling of Phillies fans who are usually here when they come out to Milwaukee or Chicago. It's normally a good place to spend a weekend. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Phillies are usually here a little later on in the summer where they have all the festivals going on down by the water. In fact, Larry and I flew out today, and there were about 7 or 8 guys coming out to take in the Phil's game. They're coming to tomorrow's game, I think Sunday's game. There's Ryan Howard to lead it off. Howard takes at the knees. It's 0-1. A little change up.
You guys had a delightful trip in.
We did. Larry's a very entertaining person to travel with. Outside, 1 ball, 1 strike. Ryan singled his first time up. Boy just fielded that ball off the wall and just threw it up about 20 rows into an open seat. He didn't hand it to somebody in the first row. He just looped it. Nobody there where he threw it. 1-2 pitch to Howard. Outside. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Waves at a changeup. That is the second strikeout for Zach Davies. 1 away, and Cameron Rupp's coming up. Let's check in with Greg Murphy. Murph, we've seen an assortment of pitches so far from Davies.
Yeah, he has a bunch of them, as you mentioned at the very top. He throws 4 different pitches. You know, this is the Phillies' first look at Zach Davies. He's a guy that came up last year with the Brewers, started 6 games, and had some success. He was 3-2. But take a look at what he throws. The fastball you see. Last year, he threw his fastball 80% of the time, and it just kind of mixed in the cut fastball. You see he has changed that, using his changeup a lot more this year as well. He's only pitched, this is his second start this season, and he got hit around pretty good against the Pirates in his first start. Of course, he's filling in for Matt Garza right now, who's dealing with a lat strain, and you know, he's going to be around for a little bit because Garza has not even started to throw the ball yet. So Zach Davies is going to get an opportunity, and he's going to have to do a better job than they did against the Pirates last week to stay in that rotation, guys.
He's doing a decent job here, although the Phillies have had base runners. That is the 5th hit that they've picked up in the game. A double by Cameron Rupp, which is his 4th. Look at some of the scouting reports on Zach Davies. They talk about his size more than anything else. He's not a big kid, but he really skyrocketed through the Orioles system.
There's a breaking ball there to Cameron Rupp that was up just enough. Cameron, good job going down and getting it, staying through. Drove it out to left.
So David Lowe, who singled his first time. Breaking ball, and that curves over for a strike. It's 0-1. Davies has been talked about his size since he was drafted by the Baltimore Orioles. He said at one point, he said, you know, if I go out and do what I think I can do, nobody's going to talk about the fact that I'm only 6 feet and I weigh 155 pounds. As that one's lined foul into the seats over the left field side. He said nobody talked about Tim Lincecum when he was winning Cy Young awards. Nobody talked about Mike Leake when he was establishing himself. And it is true.
He is skinny.
He is skinny and he looks youthful. Upstairs, 1-2 to David Lowe. Got him. threw an 89-mile-an-hour fastball, and Lowe is struck out. That's the third strikeout for Davies. And here comes Darren Ruff. Got Darren Ruff on a breaking pitch his last time.
Climbs the ladder with this heater. David Lowe pulling his head off. Trying to shoot that one over the right field wall for sure.
Darren pulls it foul.
Here's Darren recognizing the situation. Yes, I'm in the 7 spot, but I know Aaron Nola's in the 8 hole tonight. Knowing there's 2 outs, I'm probably not going to see a whole lot of straight pitches. I'm going to look for something spinning. If I get it up, I'm going to take a good pass at it. Exactly what he did. Unfortunately, hit it foul down the left field line.
That one is shot through the hole, the vacant hole on the right side. Rounding third, heading for home is Cameron Rupp, and he will score to tie this ball game up. An RBI single by Darren Ruff. It's his second RBI of the year, and the Phils and the Brewers are all even at 1.
2-out tally.
Well, and he hit it away from the shift. It's something that we saw him do, and you mentioned this before during spring training.
Hits a bullet to right center there. May have been a tougher play because he did hit it so hard for a second baseman if they were lined up in a normal positioning. I think maybe that's something that Craig Counsell maybe second guess himself why he even gave him a couple pitches to hit.
Well, now Nola's up with 2 men down. Rupp a short lead at first. Two balls and 2 strikes to Nola.
Get it ready, Aaron. You know what you're getting.
Shoots it the other way, and Carter's able to get to the glove side. Did he get it ready?
Not so much.
3 unassisted. The Phillies tie it up, though, on an RBI single by Darren Ruff. We're all even at 1 as we go to the bottom of the 4th. out, add a little color. Avery Neon shipping labels ensure all your shipping messages get noticed. Perfect for any priority message. And WB Mason delivers the same day when you order by 11:30. Local service, personalized. Who but WB Mason. Well, with Ben Davis and Greg Murphy, I'm Tom McCarthy. We go to the bottom of the 4th inning. It's 1-1 ball game. Charlie Morton is scheduled to pitch tomorrow's game. It'll be 7:10 Eastern time, 6:10 local time. Charlie's pitched well. His ball has been moving good. His velocity has been better than it has been in past years. He'll be opposed by Chase Anderson. Phillies have seen Chase Anderson before, over from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Aaron Nola, who made the last out, just finishing up his warm-up tosses. What do you think about his fastball command, Ben, compared to his last time out?
I like it. It's been down. He's missing down or off the plate, but seems like he's got a good, better plane on the baseball.
He will face Aaron Hill, Ramon Flores, and Davies. So far, a low-scoring game, not a surprise because these two teams have played a lot of low-scoring games this year. 0-1 to Aaron Hill. In fact, the Brewers have had 7 decisions this year where the winning team has had either a 2-run lead or a 1-run lead, or has won by 2 runs or 1 run. I think that's a credit to their bullpen. Their bullpen's been very good. But Craig Counsell's team, and I think he expected this, although he has some pieces coming in, but I think he expected for the most part that they would scuffle to score runs. .226 team average. They have 15 home runs and 60 runs scored so far in 16 games. Now, that's 18 more than the Phillies have scored. Phillies are at 42 runs. Here's the 0-2 pitch to Hill. Hit toward third, and Maikel Franco bobbles for a moment, but is able to recover in time to throw out Aaron Hill. 1 out. Ramon Flores is coming up. MLB.com at bat. Follow Phillies baseball live with the MLB.com at bat app. Stay up to the moment at any moment with live game video highlights, StatCast, news, and more. Download MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball on your phone or tablet. It's also a great tool if you're trying to follow the minor league systems of a particular organization, including the Phillies. Last time I peeked, the Reading Fightin' Phils were having a good night. J.P. Crawford, Dylan Cousins, Rhys Hoskins, all having decent nights. Roman Quinn hit a 400-foot home run tonight.
He's got some pop.
He
He's
does.
not a big guy.
Nope. One-two pitch. Check swing. Did he go? No. Over to shortstop. Freddie Galvis in a step or so and makes the play. A couple of ground ball outs in this inning for Aaron Nola. And Zach Davies will be the batter.
That's the fastball command I love. I know it's the pitcher up, but Love to see good location on fastballs. Free and easy.
And then a curveball that he pushes toward Hernandez. And another easy inning for Aaron Nola. He's retired 7 in a row, including the side in order the last 2 innings. Cesar Hernandez will kick it off when we return. Thursday, July 7th through Monday, July 11th. What are you doing? Well, why don't you come out to Colorado with the Phillies? The package includes airfare options, I should say, hotel accommodations, tickets to all 4 games, brunch with Phillies broadcasters, custom merchandise, a Coors Field tour. Visit Phillies.com/Phillies vacations or call 877-833-7326 for details. By the way, he asked us to make a big deal of it. We weren't going to, but happy 50th birthday to the ever popular and young and vibrant Mickey Morandini. We came into the clubhouse today. We quietly wished him a happy birthday as Hernandez fouls it down the left field line. And we said, we know you don't like the attention. He goes, no, I want you to mention it on TV tonight. We're just kidding. Here's his wife Peg to the left there.
His youngest boy came on the trip as well.
Oh, that's cool. 1 ball and 1 strike to Cesar.
You're so good at keeping a secret, Tom.
You're not going to find a better guy than Mickey Morandini. We were all very excited when he was named the first base coach for the Phillies. 1 ball and 1 strike to Cesar. It's 2-1. Mickey asked if we would bring a cake out to the first base coach's box. That's where we had to pull it back a little bit.
Just a wee bit.
There's a strike. It's 2-2. Makes you feel old that Mickey Morandini's 50 years old. 3-2. Some others celebrating today. Mickey Vernon was born on April 22nd. The late Mickey Vernon, who
great family friend.
Yep, Harry Callis was his favorite player when Harry was younger. That ball is lined down the right field line, and it is a foul ball. Terry Francona. Hopefully Wheels and Frank Kopenbarger reached out and wished Terry Francona a happy birthday today.
The unassisted triple play, Mickey Morandini. Barry Bonds was involved in that. I know that.
Shallow left field, and VR, the shortstop, is there, and he makes the catch. One away. Odubel Herrera is coming up. Odubel is 0 for 2. He's flied to left, and he is flied to center field. Front, pretty good mix, 90 miles an hour to 78 miles an hour. .89-mile-an-hour fastball. His cut fastball's been 84. His changeup has averaged 78. Odubel with a quick bat fouls it back. And it remains no balls and 2 strikes. Oops. The net was there to grab that one. That's where they've added the netting here at Miller Park, right in front of the Morandini family. They did not put it up for his 50th birthday. Put it up at the beginning of the year. Back toward the middle, and a base hit for Odubel Herrera. So he's aboard with a 1-out single. And Freddie Galvis is coming up. Talked about Freddie in the open, how he has used the entire field during this 6-game hitting streak. And Murph, it goes according to plan as far as what Freddie wanted to do when this season began.
Yeah, you'll remember, he started off the season slowly, and they talked about using the heavier bat and keeping his bat throughout the zone, and he has been able to do that over the past couple of days. You mentioned the 6-game hit streak. There you see where his hits have gone. Now, he has 14 hits on the season. 12 of those have come from the left side, and he's using the whole field from the left side. Both of his home runs this season also from the left side. He's batting .273 from that side as he pulls that one down the line, and that is a fair ball. That's what we've seen out of Freddie Galvis of late, guys.
How about the aggressiveness of Juan Samuel? Here comes Odubel Herrera. He'll score, head first slide, and Freddie Galvis pulls into third base with an RBI extra base hit. The Phils lead it 2-1.
There was no hesitation on Juan Samuel there.
Nope. It was a great read all the way around. It turns out to be an RBI double for Galvis. Goes to third on the throw.
No wasted motion in that swing. None. He goes down the line here. Odubel with a good turn. What was key there, and you could see that he was picking up Juan Samuel before he even reached second base. That's always key. Knowing exactly how many strides, these guys have it down to a science. How many strides you have in between each bag. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Well, that with one man down, Franco is up, and Franco takes inside. The infield is in. They have 3 infielders on the left side of the diamond. Talk about these two teams struggling to score runs, and this is an indication that the Brewers do not want to fall behind by 2. Get it in the air, Michael. And he does get it in the air. A high drive deep to left field. Braun going back toward the fence, and it is gone. A home run for Michael Franco. A 2-run shot And the Phillies now lead it 4-1.
Was that in the air long enough for you, Tom?
That was in the air for plenty of time. Home run number 3 for Maikel Franco. And it makes a winner out of Edgar Seeley of Levittown, Pennsylvania, in the McDonald's home run jackpot.
Way to go, Edgar. You hang it, Maikel bangs it. Boy, that's a good-looking swing there.
Right to the foot of the restaurant out in left field. Great extension, bat through the zone.
You said it, extension.
So 3 runs have scored for the Phils. Ryan Howard sends one in the air to center field. That's pretty well hit. Flores going back. He has room, and he makes the catch. 2 outs here in the 5th inning.
Maikel had a very good batting practice, and Pete Mackanin was as hands-on as I've ever seen a manager be with a hitter. Usually the hitting coaches will take over, but Pete really dominated the conversation that they were having during batting practice today. It was a very good PP. Yes, it doesn't always translate, but he was hitting a ton of balls on a line today.
Sometimes you just need a little of that positive reinforcement, though, too.
Yeah.
Well, here you go. We kind of showed some of these shots during our open tonight. He talked about that. He talks about that with a lot of the players about, getting your weight forward, making sure that there's a distribution of your weight. I think they all know that, but sometimes you fall into a habit where you don't do it.
Right. I think that was a case of Pete saying when you land, you take your stride, make sure your head and your hands don't chase that stride.
Cameron Rupp hit by a pitch, so he's aboard. They'll give David Lowe a chance to bat. Greg Counts is taking a look at the lineup card. Nobody is warming up in his bullpen.
What's a swing? I mean, he really just stays back. His head does not move. Good transfer of weight, and that extension. Whew, bottle that.
To David Lowe. In the dirt, delayed steal by Rupp, and he's going to get to second base.
Love it. I love it. Element of surprise. It also helps when you have a lefty up. Jonathan Lucroy really doesn't see him. It is a ball in the dirt, which helps a lot. Nothing he could do.
But he was breaking before that ball went into the dirt.
Yes.
First stolen base of the year for Cameron Rupp. Every time we're here, I do feel like we're going to get a baseball up into the booth. It's got to go on the right angle over that net, but we've had 2 baseballs that have come up. One to the foot of the press box, and that one about 10 rows in front of us over to the left.
I think this would be our best bet to get one.
Yep. In the dirt, and it's 2-2.
I'll protect you, Tom. You don't feel too secure that you say that, do you?
I do not feel safe and secure, as we used to say. 2 balls and 2 strikes to David Lowe. 3-2. Ball ran inside. Darren Ruff waits on deck. 9 hits for the Phillies. And we have 2 outs in the 5th inning. Don't forget, they didn't reach double digits in hits until the 11th inning the other night against the Mets. They're stringing them together here. Lucroy off with the mask and the helmet. Side is retired. But the Phillies score 3 runs in the inning. An RBI double by Freddie Galvis, and then this bomb right here. Maikel Franco. It went into the patio area at the restaurant here at Miller Park, and the Phillies lead it 4-1. Some of the action from yesterday's games. Lehigh Valley defeated Syracuse 10-2. Tommy Joseph, 5 hits in his last 2 games, 3 doubles and a home run. Clearwater defeated Daytona 1-0, and Lakewood defeated Greensboro. Josh Tobias 2 for 5 with a double and 3 RBIs. It's a nice little sweep for the Phillies minor league teams. Bullpen action for the Brewers. That's Blaine Boyer, who is warming up out in the pen. We'll go to the bottom of the 5th inning. Phillies lead it 4-1. Jonathan Villar walked his first time up. Think about some of the trades the Phillies made with the Astros. When you think about Villar and you think about Santana, who's on deck, you have to go back and look, because there were so many players the Phillies sent to the Astros, whether it be for the Billy Wagner deal, the Brad Lidge deal, the Roy Oswalt deal, the Hunter Pence trade, the Ken Giles trade, which just happened. Villar was in the Roy Oswalt deal. Two balls and 2 strikes.
Emergency hack there by Villar. Good play, Bo.
Bo wanted to field that one cleanly. Thought better of it at the last moment. Inside, so it's 3-2. Well, Aaron Nola has a lead here, and we'll see if he can front run a little bit, looking for his first victory of the season. Pitched well enough in a couple of his outings, not so much as last time. his assessment of his outing the last time was excellent. In fact, his fastball was a big issue, as we talked about, and he said, I had nothing. He said, I had a curveball. He said, but I could not, and I cannot get through an entire outing with just a curveball.
It's great. You can be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Look yourself in the mirror.
Franco on the infield grass has to hurry. VR runs well, and he gets him. One away. The Eagles made a bold move with the Browns to get the #2 pick in the draft. Find out what that could mean for the Eagles with CSN experts Derek Gunn and Reuben Frank on the special edition of Quick Slants, Saturday at noon only on Comcast Sportsnet. Eagles have already said that it looks like they're going to pick one of the quarterbacks, depending on who the Los Angeles Rams pick. Here is Santana. Santana struck out and doubled, or I should say singled, his last time up. He was overpowered by the location of that 91-mile-an-hour fastball.
He really resembles Matt Kemp.
Domingo Santana?
Really does. It's in his face. You think?
He does have a resemblance to him. He is a lot bigger than I remembered him.
Yes.
Fouls it back. It remains 0-2. Remember when the Phillies made that trade, Domingo Santana was the last piece to the puzzle. Ed Wade was the general manager of the Astros, and he had a pretty good idea of what his upside would be. So that's why he was included in that deal. Up and in, 1-2.
Great pitch.
Curveball here. Or he's going to dot another fastball.
I'd dot a heater in. Probably looking for something soft away, but this is great. No intent, but
curveball waved at it, missed. Well, he set him up.
That's pitching.
5 strikeouts for Aaron Nola. And Scooter Jeanette's coming up.
He throws. He really doesn't let up anything on his arm. He throws at the same arm speed. It's violent, like he's throwing that fastball. That's why it's so deceptive.
68% of the time he's thrown a fastball tonight, 29% the curveball, and just 2% of the time he's thrown the changeup. I think we saw the changeup just the one time. There's a ground ball to second base, gobbled up by Cesar Hernandez. Boy, Aaron Nola is dealing right now. It is good to see. He's retired 10 in a row. We've played 5. We'll move to the 6th in Milwaukee. It's 4-1 Phils. Whatever role Pete McCannon and Bob McClure need him to fill. Expected to be in middle relief area of the pen, Yenmar Gomez was slid into the closer's role 5 games into the season, and he has stood tall in late innings. The 28-year-old right-hander has delivered with confidence and delivered on all save situations when the phone is rung. And it's brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. 4-1 as we go to the top of the 6th inning. We may see Genmar Gomez with the off day yesterday. Everybody's available and ready to go. Facing Zach Davies. Darren Ruff will lead things off. Darren is 1 for 2. He has singled home a run. He's also struck out. The strikeout was his first time up. The single and the RBI came his last time. That tied the game at 1. And he takes a strike. It's 0-1. Do you like this defensive alignment for Darren Ruff? I know he had the base hit the last time, but do you think this is according to how he is as a hitter?
Yes. But you'll see that the outfield is pretty much straight up.
Over to third, right at the third baseman, Aaron Hill. And there's one away. And Aaron Nola's coming up. I think Pete was going to, if you think back to the last at bat for Darren Ruff, I think Pete's going to be really happy with that RBI single. I think it's accomplished at least the first part of what he wanted to accomplish by giving him a chance to play tonight against a right-hander. There's a strike, and Murph, it may not be the last time that we see Darren Ruff this weekend here in Milwaukee.
Yeah, Pete seemed to indicate that he'd like for Darren Ruff to play in maybe all 3 games, even though it's going to be 3 right-handers starting for the Brewers during this series. You know, the original plan was we would see Darren against left-handers, we would see Ryan Howard against right-handers, but, you know, for a lot of different reasons, the lack of offense being one of the biggies, he's talking about playing him in all 3 of these games. But maybe even more importantly, he just said today, I got to get Darren Ruff some at-bats. As you mentioned earlier, you know, he's only had, coming into the game, he only had 18 at-bats. He had 2 hits coming in, and he's a guy that if they're going to use him off the bench late in games, he needs to have a couple of more at bats. He needs to get into a little bit of better rhythm. So Pete Mackanin said, you know what, don't be surprised if you see Darren playing in these 3 games, despite the fact that there's 3 right-handers starting for the Brewers. And it also gives Peter Bourjos a chance to work on a couple of things. They've been working on him, trying to, you know, stay inside the ball a little bit more. He's been casting his arms out at the plate, and they're trying to get him to work on that. So the combination of those 2 things would lead you to believe that we'll see Darren throughout this series.
And Peter said that he understands that. Just talking to him before the ball game, he understands that, and he is trying to get his swing back to where it needs to be. And Darren, well, as you would imagine, he was welcoming the opportunity to get some ABs.
I'm sure he was.
Swing and a miss by Cesar Hernandez. No balls and 2 strikes.
And this is not something they're just working on in the cage. Manny Burris was out here today. Peter Bourjos along with Darren Ruff. They're out here early around 2 o'clock, 2:30, taking early batting practice, working on those things.
And most of the early BP happens the first day in.
Yes.
So there's sort of a game plan coming in for Steve Henderson, in this case, the hitting coach, and the players. The door's open, but there's specific guys that usually are requested for extra BP. Hernandez is down looking on strikes. He thought that pitch was high. It's a 1-2-3 6th inning. We'll move to the bottom of the 6th. Phillies hanging on to a 3-run lead. dealer at ChevyDealer.com. By T-Mobile. Get Major League coverage. T-Mobile has doubled its 4G LTE since 2015. And by your Delaware Valley Honda dealers. Hurry to your local Del Valle Honda dealer. Visit DelValleHondaDealers.com. Bottom half of the 6th inning. Phillies on top 4-1. Everything's going right for the Phils right now, except for the hot dog race. Unless you're hot dog, because hot dog started out leading and never looked back. Chorizo had no idea where he was going. He was fading from the get-go. So congratulations to Scott and Larry, who picked hot dog to win the race tonight.
Yeah, way to go.
Center field. That's not hit well. Odubel Herrera is there. One pitch, one set aside. Ben, I want you to look away. Cover your ears, because I know you're DVRing the Flyers game. I don't want to spoil the outcome for you, but here you go. Flyers win it 2-0. Caps lead the series 3-2, but the Flyers are surging. Goaltending play. It's been an uptick the last couple of games.
Yes, it has. 90 looks good. But Mace was a big reason they did get in those playoffs. Let's not forget that.
Jonathan Lucroy has struck out. He's also flied to right. That one's looped out toward right field and just past the glove of Cesar Hernandez. Well, that's a 7-game hitting streak for Jonathan Lucroy. And it ends a string of 11 straight retired by Aaron Nola. Time now for our Jeep Stump the Fans trivia quiz answer. All right, Ben, here we go. What two Brewers tied for the team lead in hits last season?
Let's say one has to be Ryan Braun. And the other one I don't believe is here anymore, and Gene Segura.
Gene Segura is correct. Log back on to Phillies.com to find out if you're the winner of a Phillies prize pack. Chris Carter takes a strike. It's 0-1. Thanks for playing Jeep Stump the Fans.
My pleasure, Tom.
Thanks to all those in the Davis household who helped out also. Part of the research department. Outside, it's 1 ball, 1 strike. Inside, 2-1. Going to get to the point where we're going to have to put the entire Davis family in the credits at the end of the telecast for the helping out.
I don't know what you're implying, Tom.
I'd like to thank Len and Meg and Tag and the rest of the Brady bunch for putting their hand in the Jeep Stump the Fans trivia question. Over to third, diving stop by Kel Franco from a knee. He gets one at second base. What a turn by Cesar. Just a hair late, and Chris Carter is safe at first. The putout goes 5-4 at second. Yeah, there are 2 outs. All right, now Pete McCannon's asking them to hold on because they're going to take a look at it underneath. It's pretty close at first base. I thought Carter had beaten it, but Cesar did get rid of it quickly.
This is just good play all the way around. The ball is hit very hard, which is why there's even a chance at first base. But it's a good. I believe he beat it.
Well, that was a lot closer than I thought looking at the replay.
He's safe. But what a good transition for Cesar at second base. That was excellent. The ball out of his glove because the throw was more towards his feet.
Yep.
But a great play nonetheless on Mike Hill, just to even get the lead runner.
Here's Aaron Hill, takes a breaking ball. It's 0-1. Aaron Nola has scattered 4 hits so far through 5 2/3. A foul ball. Boy, that looked weird.
I just thought it was a pass ball.
I did too.
I didn't see Cam running for it. I said, uh-oh.
Then I saw the bat boy going after it.
Must have gotten the knob of his bat.
I don't think Aaron Hill agrees with it. Just by his casual conversation with Rob Drake, the home plate umpire. It is not reviewable. Swing and a miss. He got it with a breaking pitch. 6 strikeouts for Aaron Nola. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left. Odubel Herrera will lead it off when we get back with the Phils up 4-1. Time now for your Delaware Valley Honda dealers game summary as we go to the top half of the 7th inning. The Phillies on top 4-1. Aaron Nola 6 innings. He scattered 4 hits and 6 strikeouts. Maikel Franco has a 2-run home run tonight. That was part of a 3-run 5th inning. Zach Davies is done after 6 innings, 9 hits and 4 earned runs. And as we go to the top of the 7th inning, he will face they will turn it over to Chris Capuano. Capuano, the veteran, in his 8th ball game, no wins, no losses, an ERA of 3.60. Man, he looks so different with that beard. Last year pitched for the Yankees, pitched in 22 games, was 0-4.
Not as lengthy as Dallas Keuchel, but it's approaching that.
12th year in the big leagues for Chris Capuano. Odubel shows bunt, takes a strike. It's 0-1. He began his career in 03 in the big leagues with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and then came over to Milwaukee, where he spent 5 seasons with the Brewers and included an all-star year when he went 11-12 in 2006. In the dirt, 1 ball, 1 strike. Truly is where he's had, or where he did have his majority of his success was here in Milwaukee, 44 and 48. I wondered, Ben, you know, as a player, when you sort of have a foundation with one specific team and then you leave? Is it ever in your thought process, boy, that's where I had my most success, I want to somehow get back there if I can?
You just move on past. You always have to look forward. Maybe there's just certain things that you did in particular in a certain city or a certain ball club that you could think back on and maybe get you back to where you think you can get. It's obviously a different environment.
There's a cutter for a strike. It's 2-2. Odubel tried to help out the home plate umpire. Rob Drake said it was a little outside. It's not often that the umpire disagrees with Odubel. Phillies have Neris and Araujo both warming up in the bullpen. I say that with a little sense of surprise and wonderment, because I would think that Aaron Nola is in good shape to continue.
Nola does have 93 pitches.
Ground ball to second base. Scooter Gennett to his right. Cut away. And now Freddie Galvis heads to the plate. He was a little off balance with that cut right there. No balls and one strike. Outside, 1-1. Fastball ran inside, 2 balls and 1 strike.
Freddie just seems like he's even taking pitches better. I mean, that was a close pitch. It was inside. Yes, it was a ball. Seems like he's picking up pitches earlier.
Well, sitting in the manager's office today, we were given a tutorial on how to take pitches by Pete Mackanin. Pete, kind of like Charlie used to, he gets up from his desk and he basically gets himself into a stance and goes through different things. Today he got himself up into his stance and went through how he wants his players to take a pitch.
Right.
So he would go through the entire motion. You know, he'd get up from behind his desk as Galvis lines that one foul down the left field line. He'd get up from behind his desk, he'd get to his feet, and he'd say, all right, so I want guys to get into a position, and then basically not just like Odubel just, you know, standing there like this. You know,
right.
I'm going to take this. I want to get in there. I want to take a pitch. I want to get into an aggressive stance.
That's good.
He needs some props, though, in order to make it work even more. Got to get him a bat. He was using a pencil, I think, today as his bat. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Galvis.
Whatever's clever.
And Galvis waves at it. And they're 2 away here in the 7th inning. Michael Franco's coming up. Michael with a couple of hits tonight. calling all kindergarten through 5th grade students. Join Ryan Howard and his teammates as they act out scenes from a book in the Little Rhino series during the Little Rhino read-along on June 8th. Proceeds benefit the Phillies MLB Urban Youth Academy through the Ryan Howard Big Peace Foundation. Go to phillies.com/read-along for more information. Ryan and his wife Crystal have done a lot of good work with the foundation. As Franco takes a strike.
We landed yesterday, and our very own Greg Murphy and Scott Francis were talking about different books that they have read, whether that be over the winter or the start of the season. These guys burn through some books.
They got a lot of free time.
Apparently.
Well, Ryan and Crystal were at Highland Park Elementary School, I think it was 2 days ago. And they were reading the Little Rhino book series.
This would be a big thrill for those kids.
A ball, 1 strike to Franco. In the air to left center field. Ryan Braun just turns and watches it go. It is gone onto the concourse, and then it shoots back onto the playing field. The 2nd home run of the night for Maikel Franco, and I do believe he may have found his swing.
Good night. That ball was smoked. I believe that's a changeup. Down the zone. This is called driving a baseball. It's like same extension he had on the first one, Tom. Definitely a changeup. His hands in his head didn't chase his stride on that one.
Watch how far back that went. I think it hit one of the tables on the concourse and then fired back onto the playing field.
It's 3 hits for him tonight. That is a good sign.
Here's Howard, who takes a strike. It's 0-1.
That was a little cutter.
I was going to say, cutter.
Cut right into his barrel, Tom.
Head down. 5 runs now, 10 hits for the Phils. And Howard hits it sharply, diving, stopped by VR. And the side is retired. Well, Ryan Howard's hit the ball hard a few times tonight. So is Maikel Franco, who's 3 for 4 with 2 home runs. One was longer than the other. Aaron Nola with a 4-run lead.
Brewers fans, it's time to stand up.
Appreciate that. Phillies on top 5-1. We'll go to the home 7th. They just rolled out the barrel here in Milwaukee. Time now for our cold hard fact, brought to you by Clean Crisp Coors Lights. Phillies 7-game losing streak versus the Brewers is tied for the club's 2nd longest active streak versus any team in the big leagues. The other one, Cincinnati, which is ongoing. longest losing streak that they have currently is 9 games against the Angels. Have to wait a little bit of time before that one can end. Darren Ruff moves to first base. And in the outfield, Peter Borges, or excuse me, Lowe moves to left field. Borges is in right field. There he is. Flores is 0 for 2. He's grounded out twice. Nola with 9 groundouts so far in this game. 9 of the 18 outs on the ground. Out to center field, Odubel Herrera. Had him played perfectly. One away. Boy, really good fastball tonight. It's really helped his curveball. And now he'll face Colin Walsh, who will pinch hit for the pitcher, Chris Capuano. Walsh hitting under 100. Fouls it away. His 5 hits and 37 at bats. Here's Blaine Boyer warming up again. Upstairs, 1-1. In the same spot, and it's 3-1. A little frustration for Aaron Nola. And a strike 3 called. Walsh thought it was ball 4, and it swept right over the inside part of the plate. And there are 2 outs here in the 7th inning.
That was definitely a strike.
A lot closer than I think Walsh realized.
Yeah.
Every time the Phillies retire the opposing team, 1, 2, 3, Comcast will make a contribution to Phillies charities. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. The BR has grounded out, and he's also walked. Little dribbler in front of the plate, and Aaron Nola's got it. Side is retired. Another easy inning for him. He's gotten 7. He's probably done. We've played 7 full here at Miller Park. Game 1 of this 3-game series. The Phils have a 5-1 lead as we go to the top. brought to you by WB Mason. You can't go wrong when you buy right. Buy Jefferson. Call 1-800-JEFF now or visit jefferson.edu. And by the Pennsylvania Lottery. Play the new instant game. Escape to Margaritaville. Players must be 18 or older. Please play responsibly. Aaron Nola was congratulated by his teammates, by Larry Boa. A little hug from Charlie Morton. 7 innings, 4 hits and 1 earned run, 2 walks and 7 strikeouts. Time now for our Hyundai defensive plays of the game.
Just a chopper up the middle. Freddie Galvis comes in and gloves it. Quick transition to his throwing hand and throw out Ryan Braun. This off the bat of Carter. Michael Franco ranging to his left and fires a strike to Cesar. Unable to turn the double play, but a great play nonetheless. And there are your Hyundai defensive plays of the game, brought to you by your local Hyundai dealers.
So now as we go to the top of the 8th inning, Blaine Boyer's the new pitcher, and he delivers to Cameron Rupp. 1 ball, no strikes. Rupp tonight has doubled and scored a run. He's also been hit by a pitch. Boyer, the 3rd pitcher used by the Brewers. Chris Capuano went 1, allowed the 1 run, the home run by Franco. To square that up, it would have won a country mile.
We're going to Madison.
Well, the ball could have taken in the red-white game tomorrow.
That's right.
His nephew's going to participate in the red-white game tomorrow, right?
Yes, he will.
Is he going to play for red or white?
I don't know. That I don't know.
How do they decide that? Is it a draft?
Another thing I do not know.
All right, if we're going to bring it up in the air, you really have to do better research.
He will most likely wear a red jersey, though, being the quarterback.
2 balls and 1 strike to Cameron Rupp. Time's the game.
I'm not sure. 1 o'clock, maybe?
I'm not going to ask you these questions ever again.
It's not like I'm going to be there.
You just said, why don't you go for a little bit? How far could Madison be?
It's about an hour. Oh, man. Another good swing. I was informed the game's at noon, Tom.
Noon.
The game's at noon.
3 balls and 2 strikes to Cameron Rupp. Fouled away. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, Mets and the Braves are facing off down in Atlanta. Mets lead at 6-3. Curtis Granderson has 2 homers, a grand slam, and a solo shot.
Nothing like a 5 RBI night.
Back toward the middle. Cameron Rupp should have 3 hits tonight. He's hit the ball back toward the middle, and the scattering report is perfect. 1 away. David Lowe's coming up. It's time for the Major League Notebook. Murph, you have anything in the notebook about the red-white game tomorrow?
No, I do not, but it is about an hour away to Madison. I just asked, so there you go. But some cool things happening in the Yankees-Rays game tonight. The left-hander, CC Sabathia, got career strikeout number 2,584 tonight. That moves him into 25th place all-time in baseball. He passes the great Warren Spahn. He is the all-time active leader right now. Next up on that list, how about Tom Glavine, who sits at number 24. And if you haven't seen the video of this yet, you're going to want to check it out on MLB.com after our game, of course. But Jacoby Ellsbury, a straight steal of home.
I thought you were going to show. I thought you were going to show the video.
Well, I don't have the video.
You have the notebook.
I have the notebook. That's all I've got. I could draw it for you. But a straight steal from home, which you don't see very often. It was a 3-2 count, 2 outs in the inning. Straight steal of home. The ball ended up being a ball, so the batter walked as well. But it is so cool. I mean, he can absolutely fly. That tied the game 3-3. Yankees went on to win that 6-3. So a good night for the New York Yankees all the way around.
You know, if you're going to steal home, you better what?
You better make it.
That's why Ben never stole home.
No.
Did you ever anybody steal home on you?
No.
Really?
No.
Rupp is 1 for 3. Single, an RBI, his 2nd time up. 1 ball, no strikes. Well, the shift has certainly worked in this inning for the Brewers. Scooter Gennett has 2 assists, and he's played on the left side of the diamond. 2 4-3s. We'll head to the bottom of the 8th inning. The Phillies will head into the bullpen on top 5-1. Phillies lead at 5-1 as we go to the bottom of the 8th inning here at Miller Park. Phillies family packs, 4 tickets, 4 hot dogs, and 4 Coca-Colas for $100. They're available for select weekend home games. For more information and to order, visit the ticket section at Phillies.com. Again, it's 4 tickets, 4 hot dogs, and 4 Cokes for $100. Aaron Nola, 7 strong innings tonight. He is done after 10 ground ball outs.
You love to see the ground ball outside of Aaron Nola. That means his fastball is down, but the curveball was very good. Did mix in a couple changeups, but you see the location of his fastballs, able to get in on a couple lefties. There you see another hook. He was just very dominant tonight. And I liked what I saw out of him. Very, competed on the mound tonight, but he was able to work ahead and stay ahead in 101 pitches through 6 innings, or 7 innings, I should say. You take that any day of the week.
So he'll give way to Hector Neris. Neris 9 1/3 scoreless so far, 15 strikeouts on the season. First batter he faces is Domingo Santana. And Santana fouls it away. No balls and 1 strike. Santana's 1 for 3. Hector Neris, who has that devastating split, which has really been an effective pitch for him. There it is right there. And it's 0-2. He's always had it, but one thing that Bob McClure and Pete Buchanan have said is that they tried to get him to throw it more, and he has been throwing it more. I think we can see it just with our eyes alone. In fact, Pete was talking about this game in spring training. JP Arancibia was catching, and Pete told JP and Hector for that stretch that he wanted him to throw the split, which you just saw him throw to Santana to get him on strikes. He wanted him to throw it 3 of every 4 pitches. So out of 4 pitches, throw it 3 times. And he said, I don't want him to be afraid to throw it at any time.
I just can't believe how much it's dropping. I mean, it's straight down at 86 miles an hour, and it's an off-speed pitch you cannot pick up a rotation on. I've never, well, I wouldn't say never, but it's hard to believe that you can get this many swings and misses. We saw him do that against the Mets the other night at one particular pitch.
Scooter Gennett is the batter. He has scored the only run for the Brewers. That came back in the first. But I guess it does make sense as far as swings and misses. I mean, look, he's thrown the split more than the fastball. 52% of the time, it's a split finger.
Looking you.
I would. But the concept is novel. You know, you think about, let's say, Trevor Hoffman's changeup or Mariano Rivera's cutter. You know, they threw that most of the time. I don't want to throw John Smoltz' slider in there because he didn't throw that more than the fastball, but a good amount of time.
Yeah.
1 ball and 2 strikes. He throws the split again. Fastball swung on and missed. Back-to-back strikeouts for Neris. 2 outs.
That was just a stinking fastball. You get looking for something, and then you just throw a fastball, elevates it a bit, throws it right by him. And to see this many swings and misses is a perfect example. If they're not picking up the rotation, they have the scouting reports. They have the percentages of when you're throwing certain pitches. But it comes out of your hand like a fastball. You're going to swing fastball.
There, 3 balls and no strikes. A little different approach now with Braun. It's 3-0. Swing and a miss. 3-2.
And it's odd because the split finger is such a feel pitch. Sometimes it ends up having a mind of its own.
See if he throws it here. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Ryan Braun. He does throw it, but it's ball 4. 2-out walk. And Jonathan Lucroy is coming up. And Mark Gomez in the bullpen. Fastball inside. It's 1 ball and no strikes. That pitch didn't miss by much.
No, it didn't.
But he's got to get back into that zone. Phillies lead it by 4. He's got a cushion to work with here. Ball's grounded to shortstop. Freddie Galvis is there, and the short way to second, and the side is retired. 6-4 on the putout at second base. A fielder's choice. We'll head to the top of the 9th inning. head home for 3 games. Murph talked about it before, how lengthy the time is the Phillies will be on the road. Well, the only time they're home in the next 3 weeks is the next weekend against the Indians. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday, the 1st, is a 2:35 first pitch at StubHub. Mother's Appreciation Day. And it's the Ladies Infinity Scarf, free to women 15 and older. Tickets can be purchased anytime by going to Phillies.com. Back here at Miller Park, Phillies up 5-1. We go to the top of the 9th inning. And Andres Blanco is going to pinch hit against Blaine Boyer. Everybody's smiling in the dugout. That's what a 5-1 lead and a scoreless inning by your 8th inning guy. That's what having that lead and having a good outing will do for you. What the heck are they doing down there? Here's Andres Blanco, and he takes outside. It's 1-0.
Maybe Hector was saying, hey, Michael, why don't you do something today?
Allen's over the Phillies dugout now to play. 1 ball and 1 strike. Very animated.
Michael, I bet you can't hit my splitter.
There's a strike to Blanco, 1-2.
I'm thinking this might go on for a while.
I would think it would. The way the game's going, it might even go on when Michael goes back out to third base. One ball, 2 strikes. Off the hands, out of play. It's been a good start for Andres. When he's gotten in there as a starter, he's done fine. As a pinch hitter, he's done fine. 6 hits and 21 plate appearances so far. Swing and a miss. And he is struck out 4 in a row, retired by Blaine Boyer. And Cesar Hernandez will be the batter. Cesar is 1 for 3. He has singled, he's popped out, and he is struck out looking. Way outside, 2-0.
A very animated fan down there, Tom.
Well, off the glove of Lucroy. That ball kept on running. It's 3 balls and no strikes. Blaine Boyer, when the Phillies first saw him, he was with the Atlanta Braves organization. Then he eventually went over to the Mets. Say that his velocity is way better than it's been in past years when the Phillies have watched him pitch. Boyer last year was with Minnesota, 68 games, had an ERA of 2.49, was basically a relief pitcher the entire time. Hernandez fouls it down the left field line.
Some good numbers.
Some excellent numbers. And he signed a 1-year deal with the Brewers this past offseason. Surprised he wouldn't go back to Minnesota, or they wouldn't bring him back. But those are his overall numbers. Chopper back to the mound, flagged down by Boyer. And there are 2 outs. A reminder, tomorrow it'll be an hour earlier tomorrow. Game 2. Charlie Morton against Chase Anderson. 7:10 Eastern time, 6:10 local time. Joe and Emma will be here, I'm sure. Usually when the Phillies are out here in Milwaukee, we get a chance to see a lot of the Phillies fans who live out in this area. No balls and 1 strike. Very colorful cell phone for that gentleman.
It sure is.
Princess has arrived for the game. There's a broken back ground ball foul.
One's going to go in the bonfire pit. A little kindling there, Tom.
That just split basically in half. Another broken bat. Looper out towards center, caught by VR. Odubel's going through some bats here tonight. Side is retired in order. Nice job by Boyer. 6 up, 6 down. We'll head to the 9th inning. Genmar Gomez warmed up and ready to go. Series opener between the Phils and the Brewers, only on Pure Auto Insurance presents Phillies post-game live. Bottom half of the 9th inning. It is not a save situation, but Genmar Gomez is going to come on for the Phils. And Gomez will face Chris Carter, Aaron Hill, Ramon Flores. 8th ball game for Genmar. 2-0 with a 2.00 earned run average. Day off yesterday. Pete figures, get him some work.
Well, he's accustomed to pitching. Last year he was more 7th, 8th inning guy. Might eat up a couple innings here and there. So if he is going to be the closer, there's going to be times where he's going to be sitting for a few days. not having a safe situation. So I'm going to get him some work in, that's for sure.
Chris Carter will lead it off. Carter tonight has an RBI single. He's also struck out and grounded into a fielder's choice. Takes a pitch low. It's 1 ball and no strikes. Genmar Gomez has built his reputation with the Phils these last couple of years with a good sinker and a very good changeup. The ball is lined into left field. That'll be in for a base hit. Going toward the corner. Lowe will pick it out of the corner, and Carter will get to second base with a leadoff double. It's his 6th double of the year. In fact, of the 14 hits that Chris Carter has this season, 10 have been extra base hits.
Makes for a high slugging percentage.
It does. Aaron Hill's coming up. Hill, the fielder's choice, a ground out and a strikeout. I mentioned that Genmar's pitches, his best pitches are the fastball and the changeup. I think the other day we alluded to his perfect game that he threw when he was in the minor leagues in Double-A. He was 21 years old back in 2009. He was pitching for the Indians Double-A affiliate in Akron, Ohio. And he pitched a perfect game, a 9-inning perfect game. A lot of times in minor league baseball, you'll have a 7-inning no-hitter, 7-inning perfect game as part of a doubleheader. That one is launched out to left center field, and Odubel Herrera can't get it. It's going to go to the wall. Carter's going to score. And Aaron Hill will pull into second base. So it's an RBI double, back-to-back doubles for the Brewers. Now a 5-2 game. Well, time to bear down as Ramon Flores is coming up.
Just a sinker that didn't sink a whole lot. Odubel tries to get there in left center, but he cannot do it. You might see a little bit of action here.
Yeah.
Bob McClure getting on that phone.
Looks like Elvis Araujo is going to start to warm up again. Actually, it's Dyer Hinojosa who's going to warm up. Here's Ramon Flores. Flores is 0 for 3. Couple of ground outs and a line out to center field. There's a sinker for a strike. Back then when he threw the perfect game, you know what his out pitch was?
What?
It was a slider. He had 8 strikeouts that day, but most of them came on the slider. That was his best pitch.
Huh.
Amazing how things have changed. But maybe back then, as a starter, he had a fastball, a changeup, and a slider. And that day, the slider was working. As a relief pitcher, we basically see fastball and changeup from him.
Right.
Which is not a surprise that he's cut it down to just 2 pitches. No balls, 2 strikes to Ramon Flores. Genmar looks back at Aaron Hill, and he serves it out to shortstop. Caught casually by Freddie Galvis, 1 away. I have to say, when Freddie reached up and looked toward his right, I got a little concerned there that he was going to keep his eye off, take his eye off that ball. Alex Presley's going to be the pitch hitter.
And this is about as casual as you can be. I think that was more Genmar. Hey, let's go, make your pitches. That ball wasn't blistered. But it's now first out of the inning.
Bob McClure out to talk to him with Presley coming up. A little scouting report. He was late on that fastball. 91 miles an hour. Ran it right past him. And it's 0-1.
Coming off the bench is Alex Presley, and you're right. Really tardy on that one.
See what Cam does here, but he was late on the first fastball. Let the second one go by because it cut over the plate. Upstairs, 1 ball and 2 strikes. Phillies are trying to end this losing streak against the Brewers, but also take game 1. It's going to be a busy few weeks on the road. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Outside, change up, 2-2. To the right side, Darren Ruff backhands. Gomez is there in time. 3-1 on the putout. Over to third base goes Aaron Hill. And now Jonathan VR is the number 9 batter as Gomez tries to finish this ball game off. Ground ball right side. He broke his bat. Cesar Hernandez is up with it, and the Phillies have taken game 1 of this 3-game series by a final score of 5-2. Well, it's an excellent way to start off